Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Touchline Talk with Odds Changer and SBK. As usual, I'm joined by the one and only Dean Jones to discuss all the latest news and goings-ons in the world of football. It's been another eventful week, Dean, in football, none more so than at Everton. Obviously, Rafa Benitez got the dreaded vote of confidence after that 4-1 humbling at the hands of Liverpool. Marcel Brands then lost his job as director of football, but Everton responded with a big win against Arsenal on Monday night to enhance their survival hopes. What's your making of what's going on at Goodison Park right now? Does the departure of Brands mean Rafa Benitez has won his power struggle and he will have more influence over transfer policy at Goodison going forward?
Yeah, I mean, it could well mean that. I think the big problem behind the scenes is there hasn't been much joined up thinking between all the different figures involved, whether that's Brands or Mashiri or Benitez, and the recruitment staff themselves that are out looking at players and not sure really who's making the final decisions on these things. A lot of the time, Brands was looking at players and thinking he was on one path, but then find out that Rafa Benitez wasn't interested in those kinds of players. You look, for example, at beginning of the season, they could have got Livramento, who's done really well at Southampton, and Rafa Benitez wasn't really interested in that and wanted someone with more experience, and then they kind of all just fizzled out. They didn't end up getting anyone. There's quite a few examples of stuff like that happening, and now we'll see if Rafa gets to have more influence. Obviously, that's what he wants. He's had it in the past everywhere he's gone. There are agents he prefers to use. There are people that he prefers to guide on who's going to be a good fit for his teams. And I would imagine that he will get more say, yeah.
Yeah, obviously Brands has become the scapegoat, I think, for Everton's poor spending. I'm fair to say, I think, he spent over 300 million during his time in charge of transfers at Everton since he joined the club in 2018. His tenure is obviously seen as a failure, with not many of those transfers being successes. Obviously, Rafa will be hoping to change that around and make some good signings. Obviously, Everton had their hands tied in the summer with FFP regulations, but Demarai Gray was a big success, bringing him in for 1.7 million from Bayer Leverkusen. Andros Townsend also has been a good signing on a free transfer as well. What do you think they're looking at in January, even with that limited budget?
I'm not sure what they can look at, to be honest. I mean, they have been pretty limited, as you say, in what they've been able to do going into the last window. I don't think a lot has changed since then. You talk about Brands and the amount of money spent. I'm not going to just point the finger at him. You know, you look at some of the flops that Everton have had, whether it's Iwobi or James Rodriguez. You know, sorry, but from everything I've heard, Kia Joabcian's got his handprints all over that, and Mashiri cannot resist the urge to go out and get names, and it's not always been the right thing at the right time. So look, Brands will take some blame for what's gone on, but certainly not all of it. We'll see if Joabcian has any more say in what goes forward. I'd say there will be a lot of names pushed towards Everton over the coming weeks. It will depend really on whether the club already have a defined idea in mind of what they want, or whether they're just going to be open to having players pushed on them. If you think back to when Benitez came in, one of the real things that he wanted was to inject some pace into the side. That's why we ended up seeing Demarai Gray and Andros Townsend come in. Pretty decent signings in the end for sort of money they got as well. Demarai Gray particularly doing well for the money that they paid, which wasn't a lot at all. So I think we'll be looking at a similar situation, to be honest. They need to get through this season now, make sure they're not in that relegation battle, and then maybe we'll see a bigger spend again in the summer. Like, they keep doing it, don't they, Everton? They keep resetting every 18 months and completely changing their philosophy. It's not helping.
No, yeah, it's been a long road back for Everton, as we saw with that fan protest on Monday night as well. But it's looking likely it will be the loan market if they are to make any January signings. From what I'm hearing, a centre-back is on the list of potential targets for Rafa Benitez. Also, talk has been of Aaron Ramsey maybe being a target for Rafa Benitez. Obviously, he's out of the picture at Juventus, and I'm sure they would be willing to let him move on just to trim their wage bill. Do you think he would be a good fit for Everton?
Yeah, I mean, there'll be players like that, and Gini Wijnaldum is being linked at the moment as well. And I think that players that have played in the Premier League is going to be very important to Rafa. And obviously, at the situation they've been in of not playing particularly well and struggling. Last week I consider them the worst team in the Premier League, to be honest, and they pull out a shock win. But I think that Aaron Ramsey is somebody that's having to consider his future right now. He doesn't want to leave Juventus. He's been trying really hard to turn that situation around. Hasn't really worked out for him, and it's not going to. Gini Wijnaldum, similarly, like he's going to have to start looking at what he can do, and he's being touted all around. So, yeah, I think that they are the sorts of players that Everton are going to be looking at. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, a big transfer window coming up for Everton if they are to improve that squad to ensure they are not in a relegation fight. Another club who's going to have a big transfer window in January, just 23 days now until the window opens, is Newcastle United. We're always talking about Newcastle over the last few weeks with the new investment they've got, being linked with lots of players. Obviously, centre-back seems to be the main area that Eddie Howe is focusing on right now. The likes of James Tarkowski, Ben Mee. We've also had Joe Rodon from Spurs, Lloyd Kelly from Bournemouth linked with Newcastle. Are they making any headway in their progress for any of these signings, Newcastle, or what do you think they can expect to get?
It's really hard to know. As I think I've said before on here, like where we're at with Newcastle and which reports to believe, because there are so many people involved in the decision making and so many different sources leaking stuff that it's difficult until signings start to be made as to which ones are reliable. So we're only really going to be able to gauge this properly in January. Like you say, though, most of the rumours coming out of Newcastle right now centre around centre-backs, defensive-minded players. Sven Botman's another one that's been thrown in the past week on top of the names that you've just listed. I mean, he's with Lille and he's going to cost a lot of money, and he's
they're also in the Champions League as well.
Yeah, they're performing at a far higher level at the moment than Newcastle. Nathan Ake is somebody that I know for a fact that Eddie Howe is very keen on. Has worked with before and would love to join. There's going to be competition to sign Nathan Ake, so that will be tricky if Man City even agree to let him go. It's a mix of things there. You want to be ambitious, but at the same time, you're in a really tough situation. And on top of that, Howe is going to prefer to go for players that he's either worked with or has seen a lot of, so know that he can trust them. So again, like the players there that you're listing in, Lloyd Kelly is somebody that's being linked with him. Somebody's from Bournemouth, obviously. Tarkowski's been linked with him for almost since the day the takeover went through. There's definitely some legs in it, but I'm not sure that they're going to get it done in January. So again, it's one of those things that we have to keep an eye on. And in the meantime, they're also being linked with Wijnaldum, Eden Hazard, Mohamed El-Neni. Like, it's all over the place, to be honest. It's like scattergun recruitment policy. But a lot of it is players that have contracts expiring, are out of favour at clubs. It's the same kind of situation we're talking about at Everton, just kind of on a different level, because they look like if they can survive this season, they can have that ambition that perhaps is beyond what Everton might have. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, really, they're in a similar situation, aren't they?
Yeah, both of these teams have got to get it right. Newcastle, especially with these new owners, it would be a disaster for them if they ended up suffering relegation this season after all the hype and the feel-good factor that's back at Newcastle right now. And to be fair, Eddie Howe has helped with that. The fans are definitely on side now, and a big win last weekend against Burnley as well. But he'll have to be at his persuasive best, Dean, really, to sort of convince players to join a relegation battle as well. It's not just trying to agree fees with clubs. It's about persuading players to join a relegation fight.
Yeah, exactly that. And, they basically have to have a good run of results going into that January transfer window to convince people that this is a club that can get out of trouble. Like, they finally got that first win. Like, that is hugely significant and a big relief for everybody involved. This weekend, they've got Leicester away. Typically, I wouldn't say that was a fixture I gave them the hope in hell of picking up anything from, but Leicester, not their usual selves this season, and not a great win record from the 15 games so far. So it might be that they can go there and cause an upset, and then look to build on that. But even if you do that, you've got Liverpool the week after. Like, it's never ending really for Newcastle, but you need to put some belief into the current set of players, but also some hope into anyone that's coming into that squad, because, Gini Wijnaldum, like, he's been at Liverpool, PSG, and say now come and play with us. We're bottom of the Premier League. I'll be saying no thanks.
He's on a big wage there. Is also at PSG, so I'm not sure he's ready to swap that for a relegation fight.
They might have to pay a lot of that.
Yeah, they might have to contribute towards his wages as well if he does return to the Premier League as well. But yeah, it's going to be a big few weeks for Newcastle on the pitch, and then also in January, a crucial month when the transfer window opens for the recruitment team to get any signings right, because they really need to improve that squad if they are to have any chance of staying up Talking of centre-backs, another team facing an issue at centre-back right now as doubts continue to surround the long-term futures of Antonio Rudiger, Andreas Christensen, Cesar Azpilicueta and also Thiago Silva. Chelsea find themselves in a bit of a pickle here, Dean. What's going on with these players? All out of contract next summer. Could lose all of these players on a free transfer. Where does that leave Chelsea? They're going to have to make some plans to maybe bring in some signings if they can't get round to agreeing new deals with these 4 key players.
Yeah, it's unusual for Chelsea to find themselves in a situation like this, and I think that they'll be working hard to make sure it doesn't turn out to be quite the disaster it could potentially be. Looked at the beginning of the season and trying to sign Jules Koundé, and that was because there was some fear that something like this might materialise, and they wanted to be well prepared for it. That transfer didn't go through, and in hindsight, they're probably even more upset about that now than they were at the time, because it would have solved a lot of problems. I mean, the chances of Antonio Rudiger staying are almost zero at this point. He's kind of in his head, he's almost gone from the end of this season, and his representatives will be working on this January on deciding which path he takes after Chelsea. Christensen, there's still a certain amount of expectation that they will persuade him to sign. I think that he's probably moved the goalposts a little bit in terms of the negotiations from where they were originally at, and Chelsea thought it wouldn't be the problem it currently is. But I think that will probably be sorted. Azpilicueta is a very strange one. Chelsea, again, didn't foresee this being an issue. They thought that this would be a deal they could get done in kind of like March time, I think. Yeah. Just agree to him getting an extra year. That seems a bit more complicated now than it did. And I know that there's a few people within Chelsea who are a bit concerned and a bit, not scared, that's probably not quite the right word, but just worrying that he doesn't stay either, because he's such an influential figure on the pitch.
Captain as well.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. To lose him, and Atletico Madrid and Barcelona both kind of growing in hope that he doesn't sign that new contract and that they can kind of make a move there and sign him. So that's weird. And then Thiago Silva, you wouldn't usually think they would be looking to sign somebody of his age for another year, but they probably will, to be honest, at this point, just to make sure they've got the numbers on board. They're looking at Fenerbahce player Atiya Salai. Looks like they're quite far down the road in terms of pursuing that deal. So that's an interesting one. But ultimately, it's unusual for Chelsea to get caught out business-wise. So either this isn't quite as bad as we are led to believe, and that Mourinho's got it all under control. But I'm not sure that is the case. I think this is a bit of a strange one for Chelsea.
Yeah, it's a headache Thomas Tuchel doesn't really need right now, as he focuses on trying to win the Premier League and retain the Champions League as well. As you mentioned, they're being linked with the Hungarian defender Attila Szalai, who's been dubbed the Hungarian Virgil van Dijk. Fenerbahce have obviously come out and denied that a deal is close to being done, but from what I understand is his agents were in London at the end of last month to hold talks with Chelsea over this deal, and I'd imagine this deal could well happen in January for around £20 million, which is not big money when you talk about Chelsea as well. Also, Matthias de Ligt at Juventus, Dean, been mentioned as a target. Could you see him possibly moving, maybe not in January, but summer?
I mean, it's all dependent on whether Juve managed to qualify for the Champions League a week ago. A week's a long time for Juventus. I mean, they either have a good week or they have a horrendous week, it seems. And at the moment, they're on the back of a pretty decent week. So starting to look up and look like they might be able to get into that mix. But they're so far off the title that they're not in that conversation. And if they didn't make the Champions League, then you get the point where de Ligt is suddenly linked with people. Chiesa will be linked with people. And you wonder what they'll do. But the message out of Juve is that absolutely no way is that happening, because he's somebody that they got a couple of years ago to build around for the future, and not only in terms of his football ability but his profile as well. It's really important to them.
Yeah, as you said, centre-backs could be a major issue for Chelsea in the ongoing weeks if they're not able to agree these new contracts with the players. But we know with Chelsea, money ain't going to be any object. They will be able to go out there and buy the best players, the likes of Koundé or Matthias de Ligt as well. So nothing too concerning for Chelsea just yet as well. As it seems, on most people's Christmas lists in the Premier League right now is centre-backs. Another club in search of reinforcements at the back is West Ham, as David Moyes looks to add to his squad to sort of cover over from the injury problems that he's got right now at centre-half. We know Angelo Agbona is out for the rest of the season with a cruciate knee ligament injury. And then, obviously, the ex-Chelsea player, Kurt Zouma, picked up bad-looking hamstring injury in the win against his old club last weekend as well, leaving David Moyes quite short at the back with just two recognised centre-backs in Issa Diop and Craig Dawson. Moyes has admitted himself, Dean, he's likely to be in the market for a centre-back in January. Where do you think they'll be looking to try and improve?
I think they've got to find someone who's a good fit for this team, because the one thing that West Ham have got that a lot of teams haven't got in this league is unity and a collective belief and style that is driving them through and getting them through. Even when they don't play particularly well, they have picked up results this season because of the spirit and the understanding between the players. So I think getting the right profile of players is going to be essential. And Nathan Ake, we talked about how he was linked with Newcastle, but I mean, one of the big concerns for them will be that West Ham are looking for the same type of player at the moment. And out of the two, if they were to both go for him, Nathan Ake would be choosing West Ham every day of the week, I would imagine. Look, West Ham, it's not a complete disaster short term. They've got players that could slot in there and do a job. Alex Crowes is capable of playing there. They've got young players that can play that. They could even play Declan Rice if they really had to. Now, obviously, that would affect the team in the way of its structure and the way it's formed at the moment, because Rice keeps everything ticking through the middle, obviously, and it works nicely. But if they had to play Declan Rice at the back for a game or two, they can do that. But yeah, for the second half of the season, to be rotating midfielders into those positions or using young players, it wouldn't be ideal. So they'll definitely look to sign somebody. It might be that they look to loans if they can't get somebody like Ake, because, as I say, they won't want to be going and spending a lot of money on a player that doesn't fit with the unity of this squad. And that's something that they're trying to be really cautious over, not to rock the boat here, because West Ham are in such a strong position to potentially finish in the top four.
Yeah, these injury problems at the back could really hamper their top four aspirations though as well. Nat Phillips at Liverpool has been mentioned as a potential target. The Bolton Baresi, after that great performance against AC Milan in midweek as well, with that gif that's going around on Twitter of him playing some skills inside his own box to make a fool out of his Zlatan, which not many people do as well. You'd imagine he would be on their list, while also reports in Italy's Daniele Rugani of Juventus is a possible target alongside Nikola Milinkovic, who came very close to joining West Ham in the summer, I think, before the deal fell down at the 11th hour. So West Ham, I think to get a centre-back in would ease the worries of David Moyes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, again, three kind of different profile of players there that you're listing, but certainly in terms of quality, they've all got it. They'll also be in the market, obviously, for a forward looking to add there. So I do think West Ham are going to have to be one of the busiest teams in this transfer market, just to make sure that they're not caught short, because this is an unbelievable opportunity that they've got in front of them. I don't think they would have, beyond their wildest dreams, thought they could be, leading the pack in the best of the rest right now and chasing down a Champions League spot. But there they are. They know the competition is going to get even tougher in the second half of the season. Tottenham, Man United, Arsenal, all trying to make that fourth spot as well. But they've got a really good opportunity, and I think that they'll be working hard on that recruitment at the moment to make sure they get it right.
Yeah, they won't want to let that opportunity pass them by, with a real chance of bringing Champions League football to West Ham next season as well. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting watch at West Ham during that transfer window, as I'm expecting them to be maybe one of the busier clubs in the Premier League as they search for a centre-back and a striker. Another club in the Premier League, Dean, that might be forced into the January transfer window is Leeds United. Really been hit badly with injuries. Calvin Phillips, it seems, facing a lengthy spell on the sidelines with a hamstring injury. Also, their captain, Liam Cooper, has picked up a hamstring injury. And then, funnily enough, Patrick Bamford, celebrating a goal on his return from a long-term injury, has suffered a hamstring injury as well. So he might be out again. Never rains but it pours for Leeds United fans right now, it seems, in that one. Are you expecting them to try and make some moves in the transfer market? Or will Marcelo Bielsa turn to youth as he has done in the past?
Well, I'm not sure how much they've got that they can invest, to be honest. I mean, it's a time when I don't think they're going to have a huge budget. They're definitely going to try and get smart to recruit. There's no doubt about that, because, like you say, that they're key positions and key players that are picking up issues. So they are going to work on it. And we've seen as well that, in the not too distant future, there could be huge investment coming in, because, the San Francisco 49ers takeover is on its way. There's already a minority shareholding in the club from 49ers Enterprises. But as we've known for a little while now, they were always going to try and invest more heavily in that. And it seems that in the next year or so, like, that's going to become the case. But Leeds need to be in the Premier League. They need to be in a decent spot. So they kind of do have to go into the transfer market in January just to make sure that they're not dragged into that fight at the bottom, which there's definitely a potential of at the moment. They've got to map out how they can actually attack that window with their current budget. Is it going to be loans? Is it going to be players who, again, contracts expiring? I'm not sure, but they can't go after, say Adama Traore or somebody they've been linked with in the past like that. Like, that's further down the road and might be in the summer or beyond. So, the staff, along with Marcelo Bielsa, need to figure out exactly how they can be smarter than other teams in terms of recruitment to get a head up on everybody else.
Yeah, it's looking like a tricky few weeks coming up for Leeds with these injuries. And looking at the fixture list, they've got some tough games over the Christmas period as well, and still only 6 points above the relegation drop zone. So maybe they'll have to do a bit of shopping, as you said, in the loan market, or somebody cheap coming to the end of the contract.
Yeah.
John Swift at Reading's been mentioned. I know he's been a long-term target. If they could maybe capitalise on Reading's financial woes, he might be one. But I think it probably rules out a move for Ben Brereton Diaz, who's obviously ripping it up for Blackburn right now. I'm sure Blackburn would probably price him out of a move to Leeds right now as well. And from my understanding, the top target right now is a number 6 holding midfielder as cover for Calvin Phillips, which is obviously going to be needed now with Phillips looking like he could be out of action until February. So you would worry about Leeds right now being really dragged into this relegation fight.
Yeah, and it's been a weird one on Calvin Phillips as well, because they've been trying to type a contract for him as well.
Yeah.
So, and they were already worried about what he was doing long term. So that's just another layer of confusion for them to deal with on him. I guess that, the fact that they had been dealing with that contract situation means that in the background, somebody would have been working on number 6s and players of defensive midfield quality that could step in. So maybe they already have a list ready. Yeah, there is definitely a level of concern for Leeds. I think that they've probably got enough, but we've seen teams that are as good as them, possibly even better, get dragged into it before. You don't want to become part of second season syndrome and get into that mindset. So it is a really important time, especially from now going into that window, because, we know how fixture congestion gets. And if you suffer a collapse right now, it can be so difficult to get back out from it.
Yeah, big period for Leeds coming up, especially if they're missing some of their key players. Marcelo Bielsa will have his work cut out to try and get some results on the pitch for Leeds. That's us here for another week on Touchline Talk. We'll be back next week for more news and insight on the latest goings-on in the world of football.